Okay, welcome to These Old Farts. Oddly enough, we have no technical difficulties so far, so we can move on into our discussion. Um, before we logged in, we were talking about a couple of different topics, and why don't we start with the first one that occurs to me, Lindsey Graham. Senator died not too long ago. Um, Supposedly of a brief illness that caused some heart issue. I say supposedly because I keep seeing conspiracy theories. Only I'm not quite sure who would have benefited from Graham dying, but that's neither here nor there. But he certainly was an influential guy. Omanon, this was kind of your topic, so.
Yes, I thought that it was a shocker that he died, and but what I was going to say is that he was influential guy in politics. He knew how to talk across the aisle. I did not. Some things I liked about him is that he did want to project the United States power around the world, so that deservedly so the world would know that there is some power that can hopefully be around and help in situations where it is needed. And of course, some, quote unquote, fix things. And that's why I thought that his influence in the government was really I appreciated that. Although I didn't agree with all the policies he advocated, and but at the same time, given his conservative attitude with respect to U.S. projection, I liked that part. And but a few other things I thought he was trying to get the Ukraine straightened out, and I was hoping that he will come around and be able to negotiate some saner policy for Iran, which is not going well right now. So with that hope, it kind of died down when he died. I was shocked actually he died. So I thought I should say this.
I think he was a very big supporter of Israel too, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
believe so. I have some. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I mean that's why I thought that he wanted the United States to project its power in a certain way that people knew that U.S. presence is not only wanted but also is around for the benefit of the world. But that needs to be shaped in a way that helps rather than exacerbates the conditions. So that's where I thought he was going to be. He would be able to do that, given that his ability to work across the aisle would be beneficial in the long run. That's what I thought.
Well, the way you're describing, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing at all, uh, he would have been a supporter of the idea of attacking Iran. And I don't remember hearing him in the forefront of the conversation about what to do with Iran. I personally think that the attack on Iran was a disaster, and that we got to figure out some way to just end this before it gets worse. And I really have absolutely no idea of how one does that.
Well, I don't agree with you saying it's been a disaster. Obviously, it hasn't totally worked out to our advantage, but I believe we put Iran in its place, and they're not going to be such a threat to the rest of the world forever, possibly. and I, uh, I think I'd like to see things in some ways have been better handled, but overall, I think somebody had to do something at some point, and this is the time to do it.
Well, I disagree with you as far as what's going on. One of the things that the United States basically was keeping somewhat of a lid on in the Middle East by saying, if you attack here, if you do that, then we will bomb the hell out of you. And at one point, we bombed the hell out of them, and Iran survived, which was expected, because if you remember 30 years ago, Iran and Iraq had a war, 10 years worth of war. Iraq was far more powerful than Iran, far better equipped, and they couldn't win. And ultimately what happened was a government friendly to Iran was installed in Iraq. Now, it took a few additional years. So Iran their goal is to survive. As far as projecting power, yeah, we destroyed their conventional air force. We destroyed their conventional navy, neither one of which was really ever being used after the Iran-Iraq war. But they have unconventional things by which they can attack all their neighbors.
Now, why are they? Well, I'm curious on why are they attacking their neighbors?
Because by attacking, if I go after your friends, that's a way of attacking you, particularly when the friends are important to maintaining your position in the world.
And also there are U.S. bases in those locations.
I'm aware of that, but I just don't understand what Iran would be gaining by opening up more possible attacks from other additional countries.
But what attacks are they going to do? United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, even all of these countries do not have a major military force, and if they did, they could do no more than what America is doing, and America did their best, and it failed.
It hasn't failed. In your opinion, that's fine, Bob.
Okay.
I just disagree.
The Houthis are now indicating that they're going to close the Red Sea by attacking shipping in the Red Sea. So basically what's going to happen is the whole Middle East is going to be shut down in terms of energy, in terms of fertilizer and other things that come out of there.
Is that something you heard about, Omanon?
I didn't hear about Houthis, but I'm afraid that what Bob is describing is, and we have to find a solution to get this Strait of Hormuz open, get some kind of semblance of normalcy in the area, so that the energy prices throughout the world come down, so that the economies across different places don't fail. They are at the brink at the moment, as far as I can follow.
I didn't realize until fairly recently that actually during Biden's administration, the gas prices actually were higher than at any point that's been what's going on right now for I don't know how long a period it was.
But the thing is, it's not a question of just the gas prices are higher. The problem is that most of the countries, not the United States, most of the countries in the world depend on whatever is coming out of the Middle East, that be it natural gas, be it petroleum, and then indirectly it affects the Western nations as well. That is the dilemma, that the whole world is dependent on what comes out of Middle East. So that's why there has to be a solution found sooner than later.
A couple of these countries, including Saudi Arabia, are building pipelines
Right.
that are being done.
Yes,
So that
they
will
are.
take that whole aspect of that area into a different direction.
Pipelines
Yes, but
take a long
that's going
time
to
to
take
build.
time. That's
Well,
not
yeah,
going to
it might
happen
be
tomorrow.
might be a year or two.
Yeah.
Probably more than that. By the way, I want to point out one of the things you said a moment ago was during the Biden's administration, gas prices were higher than any time in history. And I sort of remember that being true, but you're ignoring why they were higher. The whole world, because of COVID, shut down. If you remember, Shanghai was literally closed, so anything coming out of China, including toilet paper, couldn't get here. And then once things opened up and it got here, the trucking coming out of the ports on the West Coast was totally screwed up because there just wasn't enough trucks and enough drivers. So there were reasons why, and you can blame COVID on Biden, and I'm sure that Trump, if he was pressed, would do that, except for one minor detail. COVID hit the United States, it hit the world and the United States under Trump. So things happen, and you can't blame one individual for a worldwide situation. Unless, of course, the decision to create the worldwide situation was made by one man. Then you have a basis for assigning blame. And the reason why Trump was very proud, he was the man who was going to take care of the Iran situation. Not only was he going to clean up the uranium, which was under control, and he decided that wasn't a good deal, but he's going to clean up all the other things that Iran used to project power, like the Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, etc. And it failed. He was not able to do that.
Time is not over yet.
Agreed. But given the fact that no country, and this is, the United States is in the same situation as China, Russia, and North Korea. No country can, many countries can destroy the world. No country can totally protect it. It's a group thing. The groups get together and they agree on certain things that they're going to do, and that's how things work. And since the war, since before the war, the tariffs, the United States has been chopping with a hatchet all the tentacles that connect us to other countries. And now we're pissed off because all these countries that we've been slapping in the face and trying to grab their territory, Greenland, we're pissed that they're not supporting us in something that we decided to do on our own, and it's not working out, so suddenly now it's their fault. It's insane.
Well, you may have some truth to what you just said, but I'm not sure that's fully the story.
True. I know there are a couple of other things you were looking at, you wanted to talk about. One of which was citizenship. Who's a citizen?
Yeah, birthright citizenship.
Okay.
I don't. Apparently, from what I read not too long ago, apparently President Trump is going to go back to the Supreme Court, if he hasn't already, and try to get them to review that.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little bit of research on some aspects of this, and when this article, which is Article 13 of the Constitution,
14.
the fellow that
14.
that
14. 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
well, I thought it was 14, but
13 is the emancipation. 13 says slavery is abolished. 14 is the thing that establishes citizenship and equal
Okay.
rights.
But the fellow that introduced the bill was a Michigan senator I'm sorry, what was he? I don't know where he was from, but his name was William Fessenden.
Okay.
And he became ill after he put together that bill.
Okay.
And a different senator stepped forward by the name of Jordan Holmes. Jacob Howard
Okay.
was introduced. This says Senator Jacob Howard, who introduced the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Senate May 30th. And he put in, and I don't understand what happened with this, but he put in an addition part onto that bill, and said that in this addition, this will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. The government of the United States will include every other class of person. It settles the greatest question of citizenship and relieves doubt about what persons are of or are not of eligible to be citizens.
Okay.
So,
I've read the 14th Amendment.
I don't know. I've never seen that written up any place before. So I don't know if that just got tossed aside when they brought this original amendment up, or what.
The whole thing about foreigners is not in the 14th Amendment. Now, it may have been part of the debate.
This is supposed to be an addendum to that.
I mean, this is recent? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it was done back in the 1866.
I didn't read that. I did not know that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, it's the whole thing about foreigners is not in there. The thing that part of what you're quoting is the idea that if you're under the jurisdiction of the United States, then and you're born here, then you are a citizen. If you're a foreign ambassador, then you're not under the jurisdiction of the United States, and therefore your kids are not American citizens. But that's the only mention in the 14th Amendment about people who...
I agree with that. I agree with that. But this was supposed to be I believe, I don't know where else to look for more information on this. But this was, from what I can understand, was supposed to be an amendment, some type of an adjustment onto that original 13th or whatever amendment.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened to that.
It got voted down, evidently.
Well,
if it was brought
what
up.
I found doesn't say one way or the other.
Okay.
So I'm curious on that. But I guess I get the feeling from talking with you before, Bob, that you're okay with people being born in this country and going back to their home country, and they will be able to vote in this country. Is that correct?
If the rules say that as a citizen you have and you register, obviously you have to register, and you want to vote, you should be allowed to vote. We're not talking about we're not talking about 2 billion people coming out of China and coming in and saying, we're all American citizens and we want to vote. That's not factually what's going on. And if there's some guy who's making a couple of bucks talking to young Chinese couples and saying, hey, if you come to the United States, pay me a lot of money, come to the United States, have your kid, then you can go home and your kid will be an American citizen. Okay, I'm sure that is happening somewhere, not just in China. but it's not.
I just want to ask you, Oman, what have you been looking into any of this information at all, or researching any of this, or be aware of any of this, or what's your thoughts?
I am not aware of the text you read. I mean, I have read whatever is actually what has actually passed, but not the text what you read. I am not aware of that.
I'm going to promote this book, and unfortunately, everything looks backwards, but it's called The Invisible Coup.
Okay.
And it's by Peter Schweitzer, who was an investigative reporter. He says their estimates are right now that the Chinese now have about 1 million people who would be eligible to vote when they actually turn 18. The first batch of this will be the next election. I'm not sure how many thousands will be eligible. I did research also because I said something to somebody, a friend of mine, and I wasn't sure if 100%, but apparently those people in these other countries, including China, and Mexico is right in there too, can request a ballot, and as long as they follow the procedure, they can vote on that ballot. And I was just seeing another program a few days ago. Then the country in Mexico, they had a big sign, a billboard sign up. Somebody put one up, encouraging Mexicans to go to this hospital in southern Texas and give birth, show it on the billboard what the cost would be for this individual to pay for the birth of their child. And then they would be eligible to get a mail-in ballot, just as the Chinese would be able to do that.
Well, first you have to register somewhere.
The hospital later said they didn't know that's what was being done, and so they scrapped that program, but it was in effect for a short period of time.
Question. This big ad, was that for people who had passports to come to the United States? Or was that people who had to swim across the Rio Grande 8 or 9 months pregnant?
No, these are people who would drive with their car.
But if they drive with their car, they got to have a passport.
Apparently, I didn't say on there. I would suggest that it was probably they would be able to enter the United States legally.
Okay, if they entered legally, and the Chinese again legally, why is that such a problem with you? And by the way, in order for somebody to vote, they have to be registered in a state at minimum in the United States. How are they going to
get? They would get a voting application, whatever, from whatever state they had that child was birthed in, from that hospital.
Okay, but then they have to come there and get that. They have to register. You can't just come out of the blue and say, "Hey."
It's not. You're making this sound like it's more complicated than it is.
Yeah, it is. I did a little research.
I suggest that at least you should do a little bit of further research on it.
Okay.
To see just how this is all may work.
I went to the town clerk in Burlington, Massachusetts this afternoon. Actually, this morning at 10 o'clock. And it turns out this is how you have to register to vote. You come in, you identify where you live, and you show something that shows that you live there. They ask you, are you a citizen? You check yes. If you do it fraudulently, it is a crime. You go and you get your registration. The registration is then sent to the state of Massachusetts, where they compare it to other records. If there's a problem between the records that you just filled out and the state, you still can go down and vote, but it's flagged, and you have to resolve whatever the flag is in order for your vote to count. So
I'm not disputing that. The question is that the states are supposed to, if a person requests a ballot,
yeah,
wherever they are in the world, they have, if they're eligible to vote, then they apparently can get a ballot.
okay.
What state they were in.
I'm
But
going
they
to
have to register first. That's what I don't understand.
That's
that.
the thing.
I suspect they would register. However, they had to do that. They don't have to do it in person.
They have to have been registered. I know in Burlington you have to do it in person.
Yes.
But otherwise, I would suggest all of my liberal friends, let's request a mail-in ballot from Texas and get rid of this Paxton guy. Okay? We all set?
No,
because we don't have to do anything.
These people are people who have a birth certificate from the particular state they were born in.
I was born in New York.
If they apply for a voting, that they can get an application to vote.
I was born in New York. I cannot go down, write a mail to Albany and say, "Hey, I was born in New York. I want to be registered to vote in New York." It doesn't work that way.
They'll have to show you. They have to be able to show that they have on their records that this person was logged in there when they were born here, in whatever state they were in.
I have a birth certificate that says I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I can't wave that at the Secretary of State of New York and say, "Send me a ballot." I have to have a residency. Now, if I'm in the military and I haven't been home in 5 years because I'm in deployment or something like that, there are accommodations. But there is a place in New York, but where I have a residency. Otherwise, I would go and organize this thing and get rid of Paxton in Texas, because I can just go down there and say I want to vote in Texas. It don't work that way. I can't even say I want to vote.
You're trying to design whatever I said to apply in a way that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Anyway, I think I introduced it. Okay. I'm not looking to talk about this particular stuff, that particular issue any further.
I tell you what.
If you want to, and Omanon wants to, fine. But I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I think we've beaten this to a dead beat right now.
I think
I'd rather go on to another another issue.
Right.
That also deals with elections.
Okay. Well, can I make one new
Go
thing, and that is, for our next show, possibly in August, do some research and report back to our audience, Kathy and Omanon's wife, as to what you found out about how these people would.
I'll show it to you.
No, show it to the audience. I'm just one other guy. There are other people who are pretending to.
Okay, that's fine.
Inform.
That's fine. I can see about making arrangements to do that.
Okay, very good. All right, you had another area you wanted to move on to.
Omanon, did you have something else? Sure. Go on. I belong to an organization called that's Judicial Watch, and I've been a member for maybe 10 years or so, and they publish this newsletter. And it's called The Verdict. And this, on the front page, it says, Judicial Watch secures major voter roll cleanups in Colorado and Oregon. A 2020 Judicial Watch lawsuit, and it gives all the names of, ends up with a settlement in 2023 that led to 172,000 people that were on the voters' rolls in Colorado that were not eligible for one reason or another. Many of them were dead. Many of them moved away. And the same thing with Oregon. There was 160,000 in Oregon.
Can, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are those voters for local elections or those voters for federal elections?
I'd say they're federal elections.
But
That's a big number. Maybe
I
most
know.
of
I had to read the thing more closely to see if it breaks that down. But I imagine, I don't know. I don't know if it says.
that's
I'll have to
a
get back to you because I don't know.
that's a large percentage of the voters. I'm trying to remember how many people. At one point, I think I knew how many people there were in Colorado, but we're talking 6-7 million people. That's not voters. That's people. Uh, I, I'm not sure of the number, but let's do a working number of 6 million. Let's say 25% of the people are too young or just not registered or whatever. So you're talking about a good percentage of the population that's been kicked off the voter roll. I wonder how many of them are real. I mean, it may well be if somebody's dead and they're on the voter roll and they haven't been voting, who cares?
Well, I mean, from my standpoint, I think I would imagine that it is the duty of the town or the Secretary of State to clean up the voter roll based on the demographic, whether they are alive, they're dead, or maybe somebody has been inadvertently placed in the voter roll should not be. That I'm sure as far as I can see, that is part of the town clerk's job and the Secretary of State's job.
Yeah, there's a law that says that's supposed to do that every so often, but many states have not been doing it.
Well, that's a problem.
That is. It does mention in here the National Voter Registration Act is in effect on Colorado and Oklahoma, Colorado and Oregon. So I'm led to believe that's national elections they're also talking about.
But the other question is, out of all these people they found superfluous names, how many of them really voted and they were declared fraudulent?
I don't know.
Because according to Pew Research, they did this survey. The data does not show a lot of fraudulent voting happening over a decade or so. They brought up, I forgot what the actual number was. It was only a few people who had been declared to have voted fraudulently. Not a big number.
Well, I hope that's true. I'm not so sure.
I mean, as far as the Pew Research is concerned, that's we gotta, because they have not, it's not as that's not a survey they did by asking people. They went into the data and came back with the data list showing that how many people were actually identified to have voted fraudulently, so-called fraudulently.
This wasn't done by asking people either. Well, how long ago did you get that information, Omar?
That was, I think they had done this until 2025. This was for a decade or so.
Where I might be able to get information on that.
You should look for Pew Research data on voter fraud.
Mm-hmm. Can I throw?
But I know I talked to Bob before, and he has. At least, as far as I remember, Bob, you don't have a problem with people not showing their IDs when they come in to vote.
Yes, I do not have a problem with that.
It's okay that somebody just comes in and says, "I'm Bob and Krieg, and I here give me my ballot."
I know that in Massachusetts, in Burlington, that's how it works. I walk in, I go down to precinct, I think it's 3. I always get confused between 3 and 4. And I say, I'm Bob Krieg, I live at 14 Garrity Road. And they check off saying, okay, you came in, so that I or someone else can't come in and say, I want to vote a second or third time, and I go in and I vote. End of story. Now,
So if I found somebody that resembles you in some way, might be difficult, but if I find somebody that and I send them in there, and they tell the people there that they're Bob Krieg, and they give them your address, they may or may not get a ballot.
no, if I haven't been there first, they probably would get a ballot.
I agree.
And interestingly enough, it don't happen, or it happens seldom. But I wanted to throw out an idea. Let's assume for the moment that there are thousands, and this is what we're talking about, thousands of people voting fraudulently. In other words, voting when they're not registered, which is unlikely because of the controls there, but voting in somebody else's name, or voting in multiple jurisdictions. Thousands. And we set up rules that make it impossible for them to do it in any way, shape, or form. In the process, we might disenfranchise 100,000 people who were legitimately able to vote. What have we done, a good thing or a bad thing? We've gotten rid of all the fraud, but we've also gotten rid of a whole bunch of people who might want to vote and can't because the rules got changed so that for whatever reason they can't now vote.
If you go into many stores, maybe even a bank, and say I want to make a withdrawal, are they going to ask you for any ID?
Actually, if I go in with a check,
I didn't say
they will
check.
cash it.
I mean, it could be a check, I guess.
Well, I go in with a check and on their bank, and they cash it. If I go in and say, "Hey, I got money in this account, I want to transfer it, or I want to get cash for it," yeah, they will ask. And by the way, when you go in to vote or register to vote, they ask for some way to prove who you are. It doesn't necessarily have to be a living doctor who birthed you and knew your parents very well and knew that they were American citizens, but some vague form of proof. But perfect example, there's a saying in law school: it is better for 100 criminals to go free than one innocent person to be punished. And that's the rule that I think should be applied here.
That's interesting.
I would say that's interesting too.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if we agree on the reason it's interesting, but I'd say you use the same thing too.
Yeah, but again, cost benefit. If we are going to eliminate all possibilities of fraud, and oh, by the way,
we don't have any fraud in this country. What's the target about?
Okay, then we solve the problem. Then stop worrying about voting and all that other stuff. It's all taken care of back in the beginning of time.
There's fraud everywhere, unfortunately, almost everywhere.
Actually, I just remembered about the birthright citizenship thing.
Yeah.
The President Trump telephoned the PFA chief to make sure that the penalty gets waived on the American player. And what happened later on, I read that the player who was concerned player who was involved actually was a U.S. citizen just because his mother could not return to Nigeria because she was too pregnant. She was not allowed to board a plane. And so she gave birth to the child here.
And he went off to
Nigeria.
That,
he became U.S. citizen. And lo and behold, President Trump advocated for him.
I don't know the whole story, but I wonder, did he become a member of our team even though he was living in Nigeria? or did
He is a member of U.S. team.
No, I understand. That's a given. But was he living in Nigeria and just came because he's a U.S. citizen, or did he move back later? And
I have no idea.
Does he
I don't
vote?
know.
Does he vote?
I don't know. I mean, that would be another dimension
Bob,
to it.
Bob is like cross-examining you. You getting that?
I don't know that, but I thought this was a kind of a factoid, which was interesting.
I agree, and I did read it. I didn't get the answers to the other parts of the question. The reason I bring up those things is, how is that different than the Chinese mother who came and managed to wait around long enough to have the baby, as opposed to trying to get on the plane and they say, no, we ain't birthing a baby out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So is this a horrible criminal thing, or is it so little that it doesn't really matter?
See, I think only it's, unless we do a big study on it, that's what Chuck probably will be able to answer it, because I don't know what the dimensions are about this. Is it a conspiracy to breed 1 million Chinese babies or Mexican babies or wherever babies and bring them here as a conspiracy to change the voting system in the United States? I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, I think any of these people who have a birth certificate at this point in time wouldn't be taken away from them. This would be preventing anybody in the future.
Yes.
Not penalizing any of these other people, I suspect.
I remember reading somewhere, and it may not be true, I'll give you that, but Trump was considering the possibility of reneging birth certificates of people who were born in the United States and were citizens and I don't remember the reasons why, but he was exploring that possibility. And maybe it had to do with all these 100 million Chinese who were born in San Francisco and got on a plane the next day. I don't know. I'm being sarcastic, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, you should.
Yes. When I heard myself speak, I recognized this is not what I intended to sound like. At some point, for example, one of the reasons why, as I understand it, that the Supreme Court said this whole idea of birthright citizenship, saying just because you were born here doesn't mean you're a citizen, the impracticality of making sure that the parents, both parents, including maybe one was dead, or one wasn't around, or it was a rapist or whatever, that both parents were not legal citizens. It was just impossible to enforce. There was no way to do it.
I don't know what that has to do with.
Well, let's pretend for the moment that only children of U.S. citizens are U.S. citizens at birth. Let's say that's the rule.
Okay, things aren't complicated enough. You want to throw another.
Well, that's the problem.
Piece in.
That's why I think the Supreme Court said this is insane. To set up a rule like that is insane. Because now what you'd have to do is whoever delivered that kid would have to, well, they would know the mother, but they also have to know the father and have to check off on the certificate that the kid was born. These were the parents that they were citizens.
Why are you bringing this up? I don't know how.
Because
they're not going to go backwards on people, and they're not going to.
They're actually talking about doing that. They're saying all these children who are born in the United States with illegal parents, they shouldn't be citizens because they're going to vote.
I never heard anybody saying that.
Yeah.
But this, if the amendment, if a new amendment is brought in, that will affect the future, and at that time they can. That means there will be a new machinery developed to identify the mother and the father and the progeny and all that. That is, of course, it will be complicated.
Well,
Do you
but
both
it won't-
agree, believe that the reason that amendment was there was to take care of all the children of the slaves,
Yeah, that was
and
the
that's what it was intended to do. And back in those days, in the 1860s, they probably never imagined people would be flying all over the world to be able to do anything what can happen now.
By the way, Oman, you said it would only affect future people. The 14th Amendment went back and said if you were born however many days, weeks, months, years, or centuries in the United States, you were an American citizen.
Yes,
so they
at
went
that
back
time.
in time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the 14th Amendment could be amended so that
Agreed.
in the future they can make it like that, but that means that's a tough task to even think about, because given the way amendments work.
Well, even if they could pass it, let's assume for the moment they could pass it, it is not workable. There is no way, given the way our medical system works today, that they could do that.
I agree with you that the logistics of
Yeah.
doing that would be horrendous.
I'm lost now. Why would it not be possible to do the birth child? Why? How? You lost me.
Okay.
Why is this?
A female comes into an operating room, or happens to be in a taxi, or is in the home of their grandmother or whatever, and a child is born. You have a reasonably good idea at that moment only, because an hour later the mother could be in one place and the child in another. But at that moment you have a reasonably good idea who the mother is. You don't know if she's a citizen or not, and it's not clear that she has all the papers to prove if she's a citizen or not. But you don't necessarily know who the father is, and you certainly don't have any way, if you don't know who he is, to prove that he's a citizen. So,
But that's no. Are you saying this? You forecasting something in the future?
I'm saying that the logistics of establishing that child at that moment and for the foreseeable future is a U.S. citizen is impossible.
No, nothing's impossible. Well, very few things are impossible. I think you're trying to make it impossible.
No, I'm just saying that from a practical point of view, there is no way to 100% deal with all the obvious problems.
But you will also have trouble with the IVF babies.
That's a good point.
So
you
we
know,
have no,
again,
that,
you know who the mother is.
That's why I said
Yep.
the logistics will be horrendous, actually.
Yeah, I didn't even
It
think
will
about
affect a
IVF.
whole bunch of industries.
Well, actually, to some extent, you can, except, and you would know this better than I do. When somebody's inseminated, are they inseminated with just one set of sperm or multiple sets of sperm?
Depends on what procedure they use. Generally, the donor will be one single donor.
Okay, but it's possible there could be multiple donors.
Well, that's because usually in an IVF place, there are generally multiple donors. And if one donor doesn't work, maybe they can try another donor. So you never know which one. Then you have to prove the citizenship of each of the donors to begin with.
Okay.
And mix-ups happen.
Yep.
What I heard also is that on these Chinese, that one man is responsible for 1,000 children, and another man is responsible for 27.
So Elon Musk has got a ways to go,
That's right. He's got a lot to make it up to do. Actually, I'm sorry. It might not have been 1,000. Maybe it was only 100. Maybe that was 100.
Well,
And the
Elon's
other
only
one
got
was
40,
27.
so he's still got a lot of work
He's
to
still
do.
pretty busy.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is
But
busy.
how they have these sperm banks, then it's not a big deal.
Well, but as again, this idea, we don't want people from there to be citizens. I don't want people from Billerica to be citizens.
Well, that's your opinion.
No, but
I used to live in Billerica too.
I almost bought in Billerica. We ended up buying in Burlington, but I almost bought in Billerica. Could have gotten more of a house for the same money. Any rules on this voting thing? Because we're worried about all those other people, and depending upon who you're talking about, those other people can be totally different.
Well, in reality,
yeah.
the three of us at the ages we're currently at,
Yeah,
we probably are not going to impact us very much.
I
If
agree.
you have children or grandchildren, they may be impacted down the road, and they might be thinking back later on, what the hell do these people do?
On the other hand, maybe these kids now, once they're citizens, come to the United States and say, hey, you know what, this is not too bad. It's better than where I came from. I happen to know a guy, he was from Nigeria. No, I'm sorry, he was from Uganda. He was from Uganda. And he had dual passports. And if he hadn't had a problem divorcing his wife, he probably would still be here.
Oh.
So I know people, and he was born in the United States. His dad happened to be ambassador from Uganda under Idi Amin. And he was an excellent technician. He was an outstanding Oracle DBA. So another perfect example. My daughter's had several foreign exchange students. 2 of the 3 would be very happy with where they were, but they loved to come to the United States to go to school and probably hang around and start a business. Because the U.S., at least today, is a pretty decent place to be. So let's assume these Chinese, who we hate because they're Chinese and they're just here to make the United States a communist country. There's at best, what, 1 million? And so it's probably unlikely that they would accomplish it, but they could try. Or maybe they'd come to the United States and say, hey, these are pretty damn good.
Well, the Chinese model at this time is capitalistic model, actually. Mm-hmm. Although overall there is communism, but the model is capitalistic.
Right. And the United States, particularly under Trump, does not do anything socialist. They don't insist that any big country that wants to do business in China and other places has to give Trump and or the United States a piece of their company. This never happens. Or actually it does happen. And it sounds very much like, how they're doing it in China. So maybe we don't have to have a whole bunch of Chinese coming in and voting. We can do it ourselves.
Next topic.
All right, next topic. All right, actually, I have a topic I wanted to throw out. We probably don't have much time. But what is the function of government? Just generally, what is the function of government? I believe the function of government is to set up a set of rules and act as a referee so that everybody has a fair shot. And they go a little bit further than that. They protect those who have less money, less health, less from groups that have more, so that everybody has a legitimate, decent shot. And network bandwidth is low. I don't know what just happened.
After I saw you put that question on there, I looked it up early this afternoon.
Okay.
And the key responsibilities of the U.S. to citizens, there's 5 of them.
Okay.
One is establish justice. Number 2, ensure domestic tranquility. 3, provide for the common defense. 4, promote the general welfare. And 5, secure liberty.
Okay.
Those
by the way,
are the 5.
I agree. I agree with that. But one of the things that's been happening under Republican rule, whenever they had the opportunity, is they cut back on the size of government. And one of the functions that gets cut back is, what is government doing? They're administering programs, and they're making sure that things are done in a fair and equitable manner. Before we started the show, I was saying that in Woburn, 60 years ago, there was the tannery was dumping all kinds of chemicals and crap into the water. And the government with government support, they were able to determine that these chemicals were making people in the area sick. As it happened, I was living in Woburn at the time, not too far away from where they were dumping all this crap. And had I come down with cancer, or my kid came down with cancer, or my wife, if I was on my own, A, I wouldn't even know the tannery was doing things, and B, if I accused them, I had no way of proving, A, that they were doing it, B, that they were aware that they were doing it, C, that the chemicals could cause cancer, and D, they knew in advance that these things could cause cancer. So therefore, my opportunity to get some redress was nil. But if you have the government taking responsibility, then I could go to the government and say, hey, this is what's happening to me, and I know people in the area who are having similar problems. They could take the responsibility to identify, oh, it's because of this tannery down 2 miles away. And there would be a possibility, number one, that I get redress, and number two, that they be prevented in the future from creating the problem. And I think when the Republicans say cut government and get government out of society so that business can operate, that is a problem. Something that happened in the first Trump administration, I believe, but certainly in the second, the EPA was forbidden to stop coal companies from putting coal crap into the water. They had been, it was illegal before, and then the Trump administration said, no, it's getting in the way of business. It's costing business money. And we don't care if the people downstream get sick.
I would take issue with what you just said, Bob, but we don't have time to talk about it. I think you're twisting things to your benefit.
I was going to make 2 points. One is, if you look at in the coal country, West Virginia, it's kind of awful the way the coal companies dump things into the waterways. They don't have. We take water, regular water coming through the pipes as a normal, everyday routine, normal life, but they don't have that. They get water. It's kind of unimaginable how they get their water. And the second piece, and that again reflects how regulations are necessary. Government has to have some control over what is done. Otherwise, it affects the health of the community and also then degrades the United States overall, not just only those workers. Right now, you have an example of the stomach bug, which is rampant in most of the states, cyclosporiasis. Again, for that, you need enough inspectors. Now, again, if you want to have government do that job, that means there have to be a lot more inspectors, not only just to inspect the produce, but also inspect the steaks and the meat and all the dairy and all those places that you need adequately trained inspectors who do their job appropriately so that our supply chain for food is protected. And again, funding is important for that.